Alright, so in today's video we're going to talk about the TTArtisan 17mm f1.4 and I'm going to tell you why basically this little lens made me change my opinion on cheap lenses. And make sure you stay until the end of the video because I will also take you to the streets of Tokyo for a little street photography session using the TTArtisan 17mm f1.4. Right, so first let's talk about the size and the weight of this lens. Well, as you can see, it is an extremely small lens, but you can still feel its weight, right? It's about 248 grams. However, it's not heavy by any mean, but I think that people who travel will definitely appreciate the small size of this lens. And it's a great option also for street photography or maybe landscape if you want to travel light and have something that is not too cumbersome to put in your sling bag or in a small compartment in your backpack. When it comes to the build quality, well, this lens is pure metal, as you can hear. It's metal and glass, and it feels great in hand. It feels solid, it gives you kind of this vintage feel. Now, one thing that I don't like at all about this lens is the lens cap. Now, the lens cap is also metal, but it screws in, right? And it's kind of annoying to get in and remove every time. You have to unscrew it like this, screw it again on top. So yes, it's safe once it's on top of the lens, but there are better designs nowadays with some clips. Now, if we take a look at the lens itself, I love the marking, honestly. The marking looks great. I love having the schematic on the barrel of the lens. It makes for a great design, in my opinion. On this lens, you have a focus ring and an aperture ring. Now, the aperture ring, I think it's one of the best points of this lens. It is clicky while being smooth, so just enough feedback for you to understand what you're doing, but still smooth enough so that you don't have to force and it doesn't move on its own. When it comes to the focus, well, the focus barrel moves when you move the focus ring, right? So that means that this lens will have some focus breathing and it's also not weather resistant. Those are 2 points that doesn't work in favor of this lens, but if you can make it work for your application, there shouldn't be no problem. So just remember, don't shoot with this lens when it's raining. And if you want to use this lens for video, you might want to use it when you don't have to do focus pulling because yeah, you will see the focal length changing in your scene, so that's not the best. Alright, so now let's talk about the focus distance on this lens. So this lens focuses from 20 centimeter to infinity. So 20 centimeter, to give you an idea, this is the kind of picture that you can capture with this lens. It's quite similar to the 18mm f1.4 from Fujifilm, which has the same minimal focus distance, but of course the focal length is not the same. So having such close minimum focus distance can make for some nice bokeh, right? You can have that wide angle type of shot while having some shallow depth of field in your shot and having some bokeh balls, right? One more thing that I would say though is that the focus range on the ring is a bit long to my taste. To go from 20 centimeter to infinity, you basically have to turn, I would say about, yeah, maybe half, like 180 degrees, right? So it's not that great because sometimes you don't want to have to turn that much to go from one point to another. So if you want to use this as a manual lens and quickly change focus, remember that you will have to, kind of do big movements. Alright, so now let's talk about the image quality of this lens. I would say that the image quality is surprisingly good. If you shoot with this lens wide open, you will definitely some softness at the center and on the side of the picture. However, if you close this lens up to f4 or f5.6, it produces really sharp pictures all around. You can definitely shoot at f1.4, but I would say that ideally you want to shoot from f4 to f5.6 with this lens. So if you want sharpness on all sides of your pictures, you might want to close to f4 or f5.6. This lens comes at $140, right? So $140 is really, really cheap for a lens of this quality. Of course, it suffers from a little bit of softness wide open, but this is fixed from f4, and it also suffers from focus breathing, right? And while TTArtisan sent me this lens for review, I am still gonna say what I think about it. Honestly, I think it's a great option for someone who's on budget, who doesn't mind not having autofocus for what they capture, and who are into street, travel, or landscape photography. I had a great time shooting with this lens so far, And that's why I think, yeah, it made me reconsider what I thought about cheap lenses, right? Because a lot of time those cheap lenses come with bad image quality. Honestly, I can only recommend this lens if you are okay with the drawbacks that I mentioned before. Okay, so now that you know my opinion about the lens, let's hit the streets of Tokyo and let's see what this lens is capable of together.